y'all? This is John and Mike back for another episode of the Nothing Finer podcast, live on Millions and as a part of the Fans First Sports Network. Tonight we are talking about our hot takes and bold predictions for this season. We got some listeners that sent in some as well. But before we get into anything else, we are excited to announce that we'll be at Barrel House South for the Georgia Clemson game on August 31st. They'll have some game day specials like beer buckets, beer towers, buckets of canned cocktails. Jameson and Absolute will be giving out some free merch and drinks. And Orale Tacos is inside of Barrel House, one of the locations. Have a special game day menu that's going to be available all season. The food from Orale Tacos is phenomenal.
Beautiful. Yeah,
Um,
right.
yeah, I actually, in my real job, do work for them, and the owners are authentic.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, like when it's not just a standard white person taco place, I'm all for it.
Okay, I wasn't sure what you meant by that, so I wasn't going to
Yeah,
say
yeah, it's
anything.
not like some other fairly large taco restaurants in the Savannah area. Not gonna name any names, but I'm sure you can immediately tell who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
yeah, like actual, real, authentic, like barbacoa and carnitas and
Yeah.
good stuff.
Not some gringo ass tacos.
Yeah, we're not
Cheese
sitting
sour
here
cream.
paying $15 for two Korean barbecue tacos. Let's say
Right.
that. Um, but we will also have merch and stickers available. Um, we're really excited about that. I'm just going to say it on air so I pressure him into doing it. But Wes has talked about staying with me to,
Okay. There we go.
yeah, so Wes might be there as long as he's not a little bitch.
You know what? Go. I mean, even if the army's calling, go AWOL for a fucking day.
Well, he's
What
already
are they
got a
gonna do?
pass.
Fire him?
He's already approved to not be at work that day.
Okay, so he's got to go. He has no fucking choice.
And that's what
Sorry,
I'm
buddy.
saying. I'm like,
What else are
the
you gonna do?
the
What
three of
else?
us together downtown Savannah, opening day of the season. Let's go.
Crazy, right? Yeah. Let's go, Wes. Wes, come home.
It'll be the old Singular Wireless commercials. Wes, me, you. But before we get into all of that, how you been? What are you drinking?
I've been good. Recording a little bit earlier than we normally do, but I'm all for it. Wanted to be ready for this, so started drinking a little bit early on a Saturday for us. So got some PBR here. Yeah, but I mean it's going well. I mean, first week of school done with kids. We're about to have a hurricane. It might be out for a day or two. So shout out school system and hurricane, tropical storm, tropical depression,
Debbie.
Debbie. Yeah,
I hope it
shout out
stays
Debbie.
little Debbie.
Yeah.
I will say my house is projected to get 22 inches of rain in 36 hours.
That's a lot of inches in 36 hours. I'll tell you what.
Yep, uh-huh. I will say, thankfully, I do live on the highest point on the island,
Mhm.
40 feet above sea level, and when you can see the river from your front door, that is a very, very important distinction.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we'll be fine. And if I'm not fine, my neighbor has a boat. So
There you go.
yeah, too easy.
Do you know when it's supposed to actually get here? Because I haven't been able
Um,
to see anything today.
sometime between tomorrow around sunset and Monday around sunrise is the last I saw.
Okay, so the school district said, "Oh, we'll make a determination Sunday afternoon." It's like that determination's already been made, but we're gonna wait until like 9 o'clock Sunday.
Yeah, yeah, they're gonna fake you out. But my friend that lives in Australia is in town, gonna be over at the house tomorrow, at least for a day or two. Real excited about that. He's bringing his son over to spend a few days with us, so that'll be fun. The problem is, um, we normally go to the beach when he comes in town.
Hmm.
There may not be a beach, at least that you can see when he's here. So
Yeah, man, it is winter in Australia.
it is. No, last year when he was here in July, he was like, "Oh yeah, it's 28 degrees and snowing at my house right now."
It just doesn't. It's Australian weather doesn't compute to me. That's
Nope,
great. I didn't think that was a thing.
nope. Well, he
I mean,
lives
yeah,
he lives in a
it's not
pretty
so.
mountainous area, so they
Okay,
actually get 4 seasons.
okay,
It's like when you think Georgia, you think hot and everybody freaks out from the snow, but if you go up to like Clayton, they get snow every year.
right, yeah,
So, but yeah, no, I'm pretty excited about that. I got a local grass-fed tri-tip I'm gonna throw on the smoker tomorrow.
hell yeah.
So, that's one of the reasons we're recording early is because I get to see him for like a week a year. Um, so we're gonna spend the day with him and his son tomorrow. All right.
I do. Wait, I do have one Australia question. And we
Okay.
probably have talked about this before because he's come up before. Um, has he been to Bondi Beach? Because I've heard nothing but good things.
I don't know.
Okay, well,
I will
have
say, common misconception. Um, he lives in a city like relatively close to the mountains. So I
hmm
asked him, I was like, "What's it like living in a country where everything wants to kill you?" And he goes, "I guarantee you, there's more things in your garage that can kill you than there are within an hour of my house." It's like where I live, the most dangerous thing is like a kangaroo on the side of the road. Here, he's like, you
Yep,
probably have black widows and brown recluses in your garage, and there's probably a rattlesnake within 100 yards of your house. I was like, ah,
that's facts. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, fair point, fair point. You got me. Oh, I do have, I did something today that might be the most controversial thing that I've ever done.
Okay. Ready.
I intentionally cooked a mid steak so I could put A1 on it. I like
Just
the
because you
taste of
wanted A1?
A1,
Okay.
and I'm like, I don't want to put a lot of effort into this. I'm just going to cook it kind of shitty and eat it with A1 because I like A1. It's not like I'm messing up a good steak. I'm intentionally making it mid so that I'm not messing anything up. But I know using steak sauce on steak is
It's an
controversial.
abomination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I feel like if it's intentional, it's not that bad. Because like, I'll do it with a sirloin that I got on sale at the store. I'm not buying a ribeye and
Right.
messing it up,
Mhm.
you know? So
Yeah.
I feel like people are going to be upset about that.
Maybe a little bit, but
Hey, it's our hot
yeah.
takes episode.
Yeah, right. A1 belongs on steak.
If it's a mid steak, yes. Like I accidentally overcooked a sirloin that I barely seasoned or marinated, and I was like, oh, I kind of wanted to put A1 on it anyways. Okay,
Went all in.
yeah. It was medium well with like next to no seasoning and spent 5 minutes in a marinade. That's what those steaks are made for.
Yep.
All right. Starting with the hot takes, each one of us is going to give three, and then we're going to go through the listener stuff. My first take: the Big 12 championship does not include any traditional Big 12 teams. A lot of people are high on Oklahoma State. You know, Kansas State has made the Big 12 title games a few times recently. Um, but I'm predicting that both Utah and Arizona continue the Pac 12 strength from last season. And we have the quarterback battle that we want in Cam Rising and Noah Fafita in Dallas.
Dude, I'm here for that. I would think that I don't know how. I mean, it's a hot take just because they're all new and traditionally, I think what in the last like 20 years when teams have moved conferences, nobody's ever actually made those new teams haven't made their conference championship, and for them to have two, that would be really big. But I think that's more likely than not. I agree with you. I'm here with you.
Yeah, Mizzou is probably the closest to making conference championship after realignment, but they did it
Mhm.
the season
Oh,
after.
I meant win a conference championship because they've been there twice. That was
That's
I
fair.
missaid that. Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. All right. So, for me, and this feels wrong. It feels really wrong.
but it's
But
good for Georgia at the end of the day.
exactly, that's kind of yeah, that's kind of where I was getting with it. But my first hot take: Georgia Tech will finish in the top three of the ACC. I wanted to go on out on a limb and said they would make the conference championship. I'm not quite there yet, but top three I think is definitely attainable for them. With that said, I do think Tech is being ridiculously underrated by the media. Not me, not you, but everybody else.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, the only game they should be a bigger or larger than a 7 point underdog in is against Georgia in Athens, because obviously pretty much everybody is, right? Um, but apparently they're a 13 point underdog against FSU in Dublin.
That's that is a tough look for Vegas. And I say that because here's the way I look at it, and it's the transitive property of football is wrong 100% of the time,
Right.
but Georgia Tech played Georgia closer than Florida State did last year. I know it was Florida State's backups,
Hmm.
but most of those guys are going to be the ones that are playing this year, with the exception of the quarterback and three or four other guys, maybe.
Right. Right. Yep.
So a quarterback and three or four other guys that let's call that three scores.
Yeah.
Still not as close as Georgia Tech was to Georgia. So
And Georgia was, I mean, Brock Bowers. I don't think did he play in the Tech game? I don't think he
no,
did.
if
Yeah, I
he
mean
did,
they.
it was very little.
Yeah, I don't think Lad played. I don't remember Lad playing either. So like, I mean, Georgia wasn't didn't they weren't at full strength. Obviously, they weren't at full strength against Alabama the following week, but Tech kept it close, closer than I think you and I thought they would. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, than most people thought they would. So Tech's going to be a problem now. Again, like we said, they do play week 0 in Ireland against a rebuilding Florida State team, like you mentioned, with pretty much a whole new roster at the most important positions. Just kind of looking at their schedule again, there's some non-conference games here, obviously, but they have FSU in Dublin, come back home against Georgia State.
Don't sleep on
Noted,
them, as Tennessee
yeah,
fans.
I was gonna say noted mid-major, like we talked about last week. At Syracuse, that could be tough. Fran Brown is talking a lot of shit.
Fran
I
Brown,
appreciate it.
along with a lot of Georgia second string guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So that's going to be an improved roster as well. So that will be a good test for them early as well. Virginia Military College or Institute, you know,
One
tune
of the
up.
lesser senior military colleges, some would say,
Yeah. Uh,
especially North Georgia alumni.
is that a robbery?
Uh, there's a non-sports rivalry between all of the senior military colleges, and it's through like ROTC events.
Mm,
Like
okay.
North Georgia was the I don't remember exactly what they called it, but there's like a ranger type competition that North Georgia pretty much always was up there with West Point at shooting competitions, that sort of thing.
Hmm. Okay. The more you know. And then they go to Louisville at home against Duke at UNC. They play Notre Dame at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which should be interesting. That especially at that point of the year, that actually might be a really good game. At Virginia Tech, at home against Miami, at home against NC State, and then they finish in Athens against Georgia. They're post spring SP plus 63rd, which again is pretty mid. It's 10th in the ACC. Uh, and they also, again, like we mentioned, or I think we mentioned, they bring back Haynes King, which is huge if you remember how well he played to end the season last year. And then one other little note here, they're 7th in returning production on offense. So they're gonna get rolling right away. So like right now, I'm calling them for sure to at least cover or yeah, to cover against Florida State, but
Against the
Tech's gonna be a
Brennan
problem.
players in Tallahassee.
Yeah, Tech's gonna be a problem that bodes well for Georgia's strength of schedule if say something bad happens, there's a loss or two. That Tech game could end up helping them out. So yeah,
I will say Georgia Tech luckily avoids Bowling Green this year.
thank God.
All right, so my next one also involves an ACC team, but I'm going to say The game against Clemson resembles that game against Oregon more than it does that last game against Clemson. I know we said Clemson's one of our puncher's chance teams. I know we've kind of talked them up on and off all season. Here's the problem. Clemson lost 22 turnovers last year, 13 fumbles, 9 interceptions. The guy that is responsible for most of those 13 fumbles is their running back one this year.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that definitely makes a difference. Yeah.
Clemson was tied for 71st in sacks allowed. Just, I've talked about it ad nauseum on the show. Clemson's reluctance to go into the transfer portal, reluctance to get guys out of high school that want to take multiple visits has contributed pretty terribly to their offensive line strength. I don't really expect Clemson to be able to move the ball well on offense, but their secondary is also very suspect, especially in week one. I want to say when we talked to
Rub the rock.
Rub the Rock, I wanted to say Touch the Rock so bad, and I knew that was wrong.
Both feel inappropriate, but yeah.
Correct. Um, he said they're starting as many as 3 or 4 freshmen in their secondary. You're talking about going up against Carson Beck and and how many guys are going to be in the two deep rotation at wide receiver that have not played at least one full season of college football. Probably
Mhm.
zero.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it should be fun. I think I agree with you there too. Not going to be a 10-3 game by any means. That would be wild if it was even close to that.
Right. One of the guys I play disc golf with, big Clemson fan. Every time I see him, he's like, "Oh, tell Georgia to get ready for them Tigers. They're coming in just a few weeks." I'm like, Frank, first, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. First and foremost. But
Facts.
second, Clemson's offensive line is a lot closer to Swiss cheese than Parmesan. You get what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Soft in holes and not a hard rock.
Yeah. Not a lie told. All right, so my next one. You may think I've been drinking a little bit too much lost in the sauce because I can't talk either. But much like your prediction with the Georgia Clemson game, I'm picking Georgia to win in a blowout against arguably their best opponent. That's Alabama. I'm calling my shot.
That's two bold predictions in one.
Hmm.
I love it.
They, yeah, I'm calling my shot. So I said this before. Georgia has a ton of pressure in this game. Talked about it in the SDS pod a week or two ago. Uh, some of it was kind of lost in translation because it was typed out. Didn't get the nuances of what I was trying to say. But Saban isn't there anymore. The logo and the uniform still look the same in Tuscaloosa. The thought of the boogeyman still being there may creep in their heads, but
And Saban's
Kirby's
not, there's no way he's not in a box or on the sideline for this game because he still technically is an employee of the university.
yeah, he has an office at Bryant Denny Stadium at Nick Saban Field. I think that well, yeah, at some point they'll. I know they're naming it. I don't know when they did or when they will. I'm sure one of these
Probably
first games.
first home game. Try
Yeah,
and get more people there.
yeah. Uh, but ton of pressure on Georgia to get the monkey off their back, so to speak. And I really think that the revenge factor, revenge tour, part of this is going to come in big when Georgia feels slighted or it's time to get revenge and things like that. Uh, Kirby has the boys ready. It's early enough in the season. This is what game 4 for them, coming off a bye week, or at least coming off of Kentucky. I haven't looked at the schedule in a
It's
little
bye
bit.
week.
Yeah, Kentucky bye week, Bama. But they're going to be ready to go, I think, and they're revenge in their minds. They arguably the best team in the country all of last season. One bad Saturday fucked them. I think they're gonna get their lick back and just put a whoop and leave no doubt who the best program in college football is going forward.
So on the, I love it. I don't know if I 100% agree with you, but that's kind of the point of this.
Yeah.
I will say I've been toying around with this idea lately because everybody's like revenge tour, revenge tour, revenge tour. So my thought, and I'm throwing around a couple keywords. I'd like to get you, the listeners' input on this as well. It's not revenge. It's either retribution or it's a reckoning.
I like the Reckoning. Oh, hell yeah.
Okay, okay,
That's where I'm at. Yeah.
okay. Y'all let us know because brain injuries, I have a hard time making decisions, especially when I think they're a lot bigger of a deal than they are.
But yeah, I mean, I do think that they have an opportunity to make a big statement like they did against Tennessee in 2022 when they were number one. They got slighted there. Excuse
Right.
me. And then, the TCU game, obviously, after Ohio State national championship. I'm not saying it's going to be as bad as the TCU game by any means, but I do think three scores, 17 points, I think that's doable.
Yeah. I when you say it like that, my brain said three scores 21. I was like, oh, but three scores could also be 17, and
Yeah.
that is a lot more seeable in my mind.
Yeah.
My last bold prediction: Anthony Evans has more than three return touchdowns this season.
Ooh.
No stats, no facts. Being honest, it's kind of the point of this episode. But Anthony Evans is the closest player we have seen to Isaiah McKenzie in a Georgia uniform since McKenzie went to the NFL. Not just in the college football game, because if you've played as Georgia for any amount of time in that game,
Electric.
eh, he is, I would say, one of the most overpowered returners in the game, period.
Mhm.
But in real life, he's a human joystick. If y'all remember, he wasn't the regular return man last season, but was called in action late in the game against Bama and had a massive return to assist the attempted comeback.
Yep.
Because I don't remember seeing a return anywhere close to that since like Ball State for Georgia last
Mhm.
year with Makai Muse and how electric he was early in the season. And they were just like, throw the freshman out there. What? 40 yards?
Yeah. I want to say like yeah, in that Bama game, I think at that point Muse had announced that he was going to transfer. So I don't remember him playing in that game. So like they had no choice but to throw him out there
Well,
and he
they tried Bell and Lovett, I believe, at one point, and
mm,
then getting late in that game, they're just like, all right, freshman, show us what you can do. Oh shit, that's a lot.
yeah. Then he played well in the Florida State game too. So
He
yeah, I mean
did.
he's a breakout dog candidate for sure.
Oh yeah, he will be on one of our lists here in the next couple of weeks.
Hmm. Absolutely. All right. So my last one. Oop, oh, sorry. All right. So my last one. I don't have much, much like you, uh, and that last hot take. I don't have any facts or anything like to get behind it, but Ohio State, they're gonna lose to both Oregon and Michigan.
I think you're 50% right, and I'm not sure which 50 it is.
So like part of my reasoning for this is the wouldn't it be funny kind of principle of college football. Like, you know what? That shit would be fucking hilarious if I think the game's in Eugene for Ohio State, Oregon, I believe it is. Um that would be funny. That's going to be a tough place to play. I don't think anybody would be really like super shocked if Ohio State lost that game. But the fact that, to end the season, Michigan hopefully will have their stuff together. They'll have their quarterback situation figured out, hopefully.
9-2, 10-3, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not going to be bad. They're not going to be awful. Like they, very well may lose to Texas. Maybe USC at home as well. Who knows? But they're not going anywhere. Like I still think this team is going to be really good. Um, Rivalry game in the shoe again, kind of like I talked about with Georgia having all the pressure against Alabama. Ohio State's going to have all of the pressure in this game. You have everything lined up for you. You spent all $20 million on NIL, like on the transfer portal and all that. You went out there and got a shittier quarterback to replace Hannah McCord. out there. Because it's not better. You can't tell me the quarterback situation is better than it was last year.
Man, I think everyone was excited about Will Howard in the Ohio State offense when it was announced. Everybody was like, "Oh, well, I like this. This will be fun to watch." And then he is currently getting beat out by a sophomore and freshman for that starting job.
In Kansas State, I think at Big 12 Media Days, they came out and said that Will Howard was not their starting quarterback this year. He wasn't going to be. He got beat out, or he was going to get beat out. Like the quarterback they have, they like a lot more than Will Howard. So okay, cool. Ohio State got Kansas State's fucking backup quarterback. That's awesome.
Yeah, so just popped into my head. This could be completely off base. Um, Will Howard is a slightly more accurate white Anthony Richardson.
Maybe.
Less less rushing athleticism,
Hmm.
but their games were very similar.
I see. No, the thing is, as much shit as I've been just saying about Will Howard, I can't tell you how much I've actually paid attention to him because again, it's Kansas State. So I
I
can't say definitively one way or another.
I've actually been watching quite a bit of Big 12 football on YouTube lately from the
Hell yeah.
2023 season just because a lot of high scoring games, a lot of back and forth, a lot of losses for teams that shouldn't have lost games. So I've probably the last week I've watched a lot of Big 12 football.
Hmm.
So,
I mean, if this wasn't a Georgia, first pod, I mean, we'd be a Big 12 pod.
oh,
Shit's fun.
absolutely. They're the most fun.
Yeah, so much fun. I mean, even preview to next week, both of our bandwagon teams might be that. Who knows? Or we're doing it this week. I can't remember.
Um, we may have to push it to next week because you don't have any notes.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, we'll do it next week. I got
All right,
lost in the sauce. My bad.
we'll just copy and paste all my stuff.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right. So listeners' hot takes. Mason underscore McDonald 08 said Carson Beck wins the Heisman.
Like it.
I love it. But for reference, that would be Georgia's third Heisman winner after Frank Sinkwich in the 40s and Herschel Walker in the 80s.
That means we're due.
I was about to say, I mean, if the track is every 40 or so years, it's been 40 something years since the 80s. Just saying.
Been 44 years.
All right.
Well, I guess, well, for him, it's been 42 years because it was 82 that you won. But yeah,
Yeah. I'm not saying no.
I like it. I do.
Longtime follower, Unruly Simeon, big Marvel guy, one of my favorite guys to go back and forth with. We've actually messaged about most of the Marvel movies that have come out when they come out, and I watch them because, you know, I'm a nerd. It is what it is. Um, but he said we cruise to wins against Bama, Texas, and Ole Miss, but somehow lose to the Gators.
Hmm. I mean, that brings up a good question. So you go 11-1, you lose to Florida. You got to assume if they get that win, they keep Billy Napier, right?
They do keep Billy Napier. I would assume if they can beat Georgia, they're at least bowl eligible as well.
Yeah. So, long term, maybe might be
Short
might
term
be
loss, long term
good.
game.
Yeah, it could be. That would hurt a lot because
Yeah,
I want to go to that game, but
yeah, that would be painful.
yeah.
Wes Medeiros, former co-host, and gonna be at the watch party with us unless he's a bitch.
Future
Says
Savannah visitor.
says Ole Miss doesn't make the playoff, but Jackson Dart wins the Heisman.
Ooh, that is a hot take.
That is a very hot take. But if I was gonna put money on preseason Heisman odds, Jackson Dart would probably be the guy that I put money on.
Yeah, I
It's like
think
plus
that yeah.
2,100 odds last time I checked.
and he's going to have a favorable schedule too. I mean, he could
Yeah,
he could stat pad like Jaden Daniels.
yeah. Tillman, aka Dogstradamus, aka Our Jamie, aka Dog Sports Memes on Instagram, says Kentucky moves on from Mark Stoops, and in an effort to prove that they take sanctions seriously and will never allow recruiting violations to happen again, they hire Jeremy Pruitt.
As one would. Jeremy Pruitt, notable cleaner upper of programs, runs a
Right.
tight ship.
I mean, to be fair, what he did is now legal.
Yep.
So,
Well, it's not for pay. That's what Kentucky got in trouble before, though. Like, or not before, but now they
well,
gave NIL
Kentucky,
to players that didn't do the work.
right. But it was just because they were like the contracts were worded terribly.
Oh, were they? I didn't look too deep into it.
I haven't looked too deep into it either, but if they were supposed to do something at the hospital, why?
Yeah.
Like if you want the university to pay them, which is essentially what they were doing, having the university's hospital pay the players. If you want the university to pay players, just say make appearance to kids at hospital,
Yeah. Right.
$100,000. Like,
Hmm.
oh, you're saying all I got to do is walk in the front door and like give a few high fives and leave in 15 minutes? Too easy. But
Right.
they were like actually supposed to do work at the hospitals, and it's like that's dumb.
Hmm.
Why? You're backing yourself into a corner.
Yeah. I mean, some people are saying that Mark Stoops has lost control of the program.
Some are saying Mark Richt has lost control of the program.
I think he has. It feels like
Like,
he has.
and then Caleb actually gave us a second one and said Tennessee goes 6-6, but the hype around Nico is so strong that he goes to New York as a Heisman finalist.
That would be wild to have a 6-6, very, very mid SEC team in that situation, have a quarterback get there. I know the hype train is real, but
It is. But I mean, if you want to throw it back, what, 12 years? Um, RG3, Baylor was like 7-5, 8-4 when he went to New York.
were they that bad? I guess, yeah, I guess so, yeah.
I mean, hell, in 2007, Florida had a three-loss team and Tebow won the Heisman.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
so not completely out of the question.
Hmm. But 6-6.
I think the 6-6 is assuming that the offense is really good, but the defense is trash.
Which they are. I mean, Tennessee arguably has the best defensive player in the conference.
Some would say.
I'm
I don't
not,
know
but
if I
yeah,
would.
yeah, I don't, but some have said, yeah,
Right. Guy that's potentially projected to go top five in the NFL next year, and James Pierce. I will just throw it out there. You didn't know James Pierce was on the field in the better opponents Tennessee played last year,
right.
so just just throwing it out there for
Stat pad
him.
for.
For him, I hope he does well in 11 of his games this year.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And then last but certainly not least, not a listener, at least I don't think so. But if you are, hit us up. Kirk Herbstreit says that Rutgers is a potential playoff contender, and that is probably the most absurd thing that has been said today.
Well, so kind of going back with Tennessee too. I mean, Rutgers' schedule has to be way easier than it had been because they don't have to play. Again, I'm assuming I'm not looking at Rutgers' schedule, but
I'm
they're
pulling
not in
it
the
up.
Big Ten. They're not in the Big Ten East anymore. They're not playing all three of Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State. So that helps them a lot.
No, so here's Rutgers' schedule. They're playing Howard. All right,
Yeah.
one. Akron to Virginia Tech. I'm taking the Hokies. Just
Yes. Well, is it in Blacksburg?
it is.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
They're playing Washington at home.
Yeah, we
Depending,
don't. Yeah, we don't know
Yeah,
what Washington is. Yeah.
yeah, we don't know what they are. We do know they have Will Rogers and the guy that turned Arizona from 3-3 program to a 9-3 program in the middle of last season at head coach.
Hmm.
So we won't count that. Nebraska, if they live up to half the hype that they have, they're beating Rutgers. I
Mm.
mean, hell, Kirk Herbstreit convinced a high school kid to go to Rutgers, so Nebraska, so he should
That was
be
yeah.
on the Nebraska hype train.
You would think it's
Um,
the Big Ten's the NFL of the of college football, right?
some have
Matt
said.
Rule says, yeah.
Then they play Wisconsin, so I'm not counting that.
Yeah,
UCLA,
win.
probably a win. Um, just just gonna call that a win. So they're at 3 wins. Then they play Southern Cal,
Probably lost.
probably a loss. So they're still sitting at 3 wins in November. 3 wins, two maybes.
Yeah,
So either somewhere between 3 and 5. Minnesota win.
yeah,
Maryland without Talia win. Illinois. Illinois always plays teams close that they should lose to. You never
right,
know.
right.
But we'll call that a win. So they're between 7 and 9, and then Michigan State, who we think is going to be better this year. So we'll call that a loss. So they're somewhere between 7 and 9 wins, with no wins against teams that are going to have be close to double digits.
Yeah, so yeah, Rutgers being a playoff contender, it depends on what your definition of contender is.
Right? Is contender to you 9 wins and with a mid schedule? Because it's probably 50 teams that are going to fit that description this year.
I've seen several people pick the Big Ten to get like 5 teams in, which I can't see that. But
No,
I
no,
mean, yeah, that four tops, but
yeah,
yeah, I don't know. But like with Tennessee, like kind of going back to the Tennessee thing, I mean, we'll get into Tennessee, I'm sure. But later on, but they have a besides them playing Georgia in
Georgia,
Alabama,
Bama, and Oklahoma.
yeah. So they, I mean, if they even if they go, 0-3 in that, they can go 9 and get 9 the rest of the schedule get 9 wins, 9-3. They could be a contender.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do think. I
They do
think
get
to
Bama in. They do get Bama in Knoxville this year. So
yeah, I think out of those 3 games they go 1-2.
yeah, they'll get one of them. I'm sure.
And if I
Not
had to
Georgia.
go any direction, I would lean Bama or Oklahoma. I would go 100% Oklahoma, but the game is in Norman.
Yeah,
So,
I would go. I think of those three, I think the Bama is probably the most likely.
yeah. We're pushing bandwagon teams one more week. So, just want to remind you guys, come hang out with us at Barrel House, August 31st. We'll be there for the Georgia game. Doors open. I want to say they said 11 a.m. So come get a little toasty with us before the game kicks off. Um, we may be hanging out longer than the game. I don't know. It depends
Yep.
on what kind of discount we're getting on drinks that day. Just
If something bad happens, I might leave before the game's over. We'll see.
yeah, we already
We'll
talked
see.
about it. We're just gonna one of us is gonna stand outside and watch through the window.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but also check out our merch on millions.co. Follow us on social media at nothing.finder.pod on Instagram, at finderpod on Twitter. Look us up on Facebook and YouTube. We are Nothing Finder Podcast on TikTok. Rate and review the show 5 stars. And as